Emu Reviews here with another One Piece chapter review. This week we're reviewing One Piece chapter 1035, Zoro vs. King. Let's get right into it. Who would have guessed it? All along it was Captain Buggy himself under the mask, the most fearless captain in all the seas. But with all jokes aside, this chapter starts off right where we left off with the previous one. We have Sanji kicking Queen and sending him flying. We have a shot there where Queen is in the sky outside of Onigashima, and Onigashima is obviously floating in the sky, and it seems like Queen is flying even further up in the sky. We see Queen have one of his tooths knocked out, and his tooth is just as much knocked out as he is from Sanji's flurry of kicks. And in this chapter, Oda continues to show us just how impressive Sanji's speed is. Because apparently while fighting Queen, he had the time to pick up Chuji. Chuji's the mouse that Osome was looking for. And in this chapter, Sanji gives the mouse to Osome. And as Sanji gives the mouse to Osome, we have a scene there where Sanji is reminiscing about the mouse that he had fed when he was a little kid. But like I said in our previous chapter review, this fight is all but finished. And I know some people were saying that, Queen should be very durable, and this fight wasn't finished yet. We'll have at least maybe a half a chapter or one more chapter of this fight. But yeah, we got the official confirmation in this chapter that this fight is all but over. And you could see why this fight is over and the way or how Oda ended this fight. And all of One Piece were 1,000 plus chapters in, and Oda has never put emphasis on Sanji's power-ups or just the metrics of his power in general. But in last chapter, we got, Sanji saying the fact that he trained in his armaments haki, so he should be able to endure even harder flames, and his speed is even faster. And so this was just to hype up Sanji, to let us know as the viewers just how much stronger these kicks are coming from Sanji. So when Queen is defeated, we can all be convinced that, hey, this was a powerful enough attack to end someone with the like of Queen. But this chapter is titled King versus Zoro. And so there really wasn't much dialogue, since it was pretty much an action after action scenes in this chapter. But we see that Zoro has figured out how how King's power work. The first scene we get with them, we see Zoro slicing King right across the face, and there is blood. So he did got damage from Zoro's slice, and the explanation is that once the flame from King's back goes out, he is able to move faster. Like he's able to just blitz Zoro, but his defenses suffer as a result. So basically, the impenetrable King now is beatable once you understand how his power works. But we don't want to, for a second, make it seem like King is a slouch, because even with his defenses lowering because of his flames going out, he's still a not mythical, but he's a zone fruit user. That fruit itself increases his defenses. So even with his Lunarian defenses going down, he still has the defenses of a zone fruit user, and he's still crazy strong as well. And he goes on to demonstrate just how crazy his strength is in this chapter. When he takes off his mask, we see a few of Kaido's subordinates notices him taking off the mask and notices his face, and we see him having long white hair, brown skin, a tattoo on his face, and the black wings. And they even say that the world government would pay 100 million berry for just a tip if you've seen one of these Lunarians. So the fathers mention this, and King obviously hears this and isn't too pleased. And keep in mind now, these fathers are already under effect from Zoro using his Conqueror's Haki, so they are already weakened. But King goes on to use a new attack, using his sword to create a giant flaming Chinese-like dragon. and he literally melts these foders out of existence. Zoro even goes on to comment on the fact that King is adding to the fire that's already consuming the castle, which made me realize, and I'm about to go on a tangent here, which made me realize the fact that a fact about this arc, or rather Onigashima and the people that are on it. It seems that no one in this arc likes Kaido's castle because of the use of fire attacks, and this arc itself on this castle is just crazy. Literally, we have Kaido on the rooftop shooting down fire-based fire breaths, Boro breaths, whatever you want to call it, down on Onigashima. We have Orochi, who was running around a few chapters ago, the castle, spreading around fire, and he was doing it the traditional way. Orochi had gasoline and he matches, and he was just lighting the place up. And then we also have Kanjuro's giant, massive fire blob that's literally incinerating everything within its paths. And we have Sanji, who uses Diable Jambe, and we even have one of Kid's crewmates who breathes fire breath from his mouth. And on top of all of that, we also have here King is literally creating giant, massive fire dragons just to incinerate already weakened subordinates. So literally, this scene made me realize that the amount of fire-based damage that this castle is enduring, this castle must literally be made, at least a structure, and it must be made with sea stone or atom wood, something, because there's no way that this castle is still in one piece. But yeah, all of these fire-based attacks on this castle just makes you wonder why do you hate Onigashima so much? But as moving on to the fight with Zoro versus King, we see a bit of a flashback here where King, a younger King and a younger Kaido, and it looks like this is one of the instances where Kaido was captured by the world government and they were doing some experiments on him. And we have a younger King as well who was captured. Kaido must have broken out of the facility, and he notices King, and he notices the experiments that they were doing on him as well. But what I find interesting with this scene was that in the dialogue, Kaido says, a Lunarian, no wonder the world government wouldn't give you up. So it seems that Kaido, even from before meeting King, that day knew of the existence of his race, which leaves us to wonder how much does Kaido know? King himself asks Kaido if he is able to change the world, and Kaido says that he is the only one who's capable of changing the world. And Kaido says, and in the dialogue, at least in the written form of the chapter, the word only is bold. So we could think of two things. Kaido could possibly be just being cocky because of his freakish strength and power, or when he says it's only him who could change the world, there could be even more to Kaido that we don't know about, because Kaido knows a lot of information. He knows of this supposedly supposed to be extinct race of Lunarians, and he seems to be familiar with them. And so you could wonder what Kaido knows, or why he feels that he's the only one who is capable of changing the world. So this gives us a lot of food for thought. But Zoro versus King, after the flashback continues, the fight really concludes with one final attack from King and Zoro. King uses the same flaming dragon that he would have used earlier to fry those foders, and Zoro himself uses a new attack as well. And Zoro attack is obviously coated with Conqueror's Haki, and as we literally see, Zoro passes through this giant flaming dragon, slicing it right down the middle, and flying towards King. And we see in the final panel, we see Zoro behind King, and we see King's sword is broken, and a part of his right wing is sliced off as well. So no doubt this brings us to the end of that fight for sure. Just like with Sanji versus Queen in the last chapter, at the beginning of the very next chapter, we will get the confirmation that the winner of this fight is Zoro. And we could be sure because even at the beginning of this chapter or this fight, Zoro said that he doesn't have much more time left. His sword will consume him if he doesn't bring the fight to an end. So yeah, this brings us to the climax of literally all of Kaido's commanders. Jack is defeated. Queen was defeated last chapter. Now this chapter, King as well. Which brings us to a question, which leaves us to just Kaido needs to be defeated and Big Mom needs to be defeated. But Oda would literally save the best fights leading up to the final fights for last. Which brings us to one last fight that needs to be concluded as well, which is Raizo versus Fukurokuju. You heard me, Raizo versus Fukurokuju is even going to be more important than Zoro and Sanji versus King and Queen. So let's wait to see what Oda does with that fight, because that fight is still going on. So we'll just have to wait to see what Oda does with it. But yeah, that was Zoro versus King. Zoro is officially on that tear, on that first Yonko commander level, having defeating one himself. So yeah, what did you think of this fight? Did this fight live up to its expectations, or did you want a bit more from this fight? Please let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and you could show us some love by dropping a like to this video. It'll definitely help me to grow, and if you want more content like this, feel free to hit that subscribe button, and I hope all of you wonderful people have an amazing day. Imu-sama, out.